All right, YouTube. King Obama decided to show up half an hour late for his conference where he was discussing the Orlando terrorist attack, and it was an Islamic terrorist attack. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what the motive was. By the way, I am aware that the shooter was actually born in the United States. Several people appear to have thought that I was indicating that he was an immigrant. I was drawing a comparison with the European crisis and the attacks there, how there is a similarity, there is an overlap. It's true, Obama's foreign policy, like W's, stirs up a hornet's nest overseas, and then these idiots throw open the floodgates and let everybody in here, even though they themselves, their own policies, which are likened to American opinions by those that don't like this country. They come in, they're embittered, they're homeless, and then they find themselves in the enemy's camp, so to speak. Obama's speech was so predictable. He feigned outrage, he feigned emotion, he feigned a few crocodile tears. Oh, this is an act of hate, it's an act of terrorism, we stand with the people of Orlando. And he manages to work in what he really wanted to say the entire time. And you'll notice he kind of, he tempered his message. What he really wanted to talk about was guns are bad, guns are evil, if it wasn't so easy to get a gun. But you saw, it was more hush-hush this time. Before, he's openly called for new gun restrictions whenever there's been a shooting. Sandy Hook, whatever. In every prior case, he's done that. And it's like a sentient being that is incapable of learning, that continues to push a button that causes it to get shocked or bonked on the head by a hammer or something like that. Because each time he did that, support for gun control decreased. Because people realized gun control wouldn't have stopped the attack. He was just pandering. And they said, well, what's he smoking here? What's he talking about? This time, instead of openly saying, oh, we need more gun control, we need to stop our chillins from being killed, these nasty, horrible assault rifles, 10,000 rounds a minute, expanded clips, all of this other weird jargon that he uses and that people that don't know anything about firearms use. Instead, he said, oh, we've got to think good and long and hard about whether this is the kind of nation we want to live in, whether we can, it's so easy to get a gun. We've got to think about whether that's the kind of place we want to be. Which is a thinly veiled reference to, oh, you stupid morons, why don't you just give up some guns? Why don't you just, you shouldn't be able to have assault weapons, which are cosmetically modified hunting rifles, because somehow they're more deadly than a hunting rifle that hasn't been cosmetically modified. That's actually not true. Anybody who knows anything about firearms understands that that's true. Most shootings that happen in this country occur with handguns, not with assault rifles anyway. And this person was a radical who wouldn't have stopped anyway, and obviously didn't pay attention to the nightclub's no gun rule. Why the hell would he pay attention to the no assault rifles allowed rule? Because you're not going to be able to confiscate them all. You'd start a civil war even if you tried. So what's the fucking point of even bringing it up? And that's really the core of what Obama wanted to discuss. Every single time there's a crime that hits the front page of the national news, Obama and Pelosi and Reid and Hillary and Feinstein and all these other morons come out and say there's a gun crime epidemic. There isn't. There hasn't been since the 1990s. Oh, there's a crime epidemic in general. Again, not true and hasn't been for a couple of decades. Oh, it's these horrible assault rifles. They're responsible for all the ills in the world when they're used in a very slim minority of actual gun crimes anyway. Oh, and these gun control laws work. That's funny. We had a lot more gun control 20, 30 years ago. The crime rate was a hell of a lot higher. So I don't know what Obama's smoking, but it's obviously tainted with something that's making him retarded. But you saw it was more hush-hush this time. Now, who do you think asked him to be a little bit less virulent in his calls for gun control? Do you want to bet it was Hillary Clinton? I'm willing to bet that it was. Much like Hillary Clinton's shills online have attacked Google to try to screw with their algorithms, and people helpfully are scapegoating Google itself instead of looking at who the actual culprit was. And I can tell you that little groups of individuals literally just trolling have done this on Google many times. It's actually relatively easy if you've got a few hundred people willing to waste an afternoon. Hillary Clinton probably didn't want the person who just endorsed her to immediately come out swinging against guns, because then she has to platform it in her campaign. And that's just not one of the platforms she's comfortable with using, because she knows it's a losing issue. But not once did Obama use the term Islamic terrorism in his speech, once again. But it's fairly clear that that's exactly what it was. It was a form of religious zealot that wanted to kill a bunch of gay people. And remember, if this shooter had been a white Christian male who was waving a Bible and saying praise Jesus the entire time, there would be no mistaking it. Obama's address would have included, this was religiously motivated, this person was filled with hate, wrongful dogma, doesn't know anything about Jesus and the love of the Lord, and is just flawed in every possible way. But because it doesn't involve a Christian, it involves someone who practices Islam, which is what the shooter does, or did before he got his head blown off, thankfully. He can't mention that because it doesn't bode well for his foreign policy. He keeps saying, oh, Muslims don't do this stuff. These are all just fake. They're not actually religious. It's really a gun problem. It has nothing to do with Islam. But at the same time, it's inevitably going to be either toxic masculinity or racism or religious zeal if it's any group other than Islamists. Anybody else, and it's always a problem with the group. Except when it's Muslims, then it's a gun problem. And you've seen this time and time and time again. And it's a gun problem either way. I mean, he's still going to use it as a chance to bash private gun owners, which is retarded because last I checked, there were over 80 million gun owners in the country. Last I checked, not all of them went on shooting sprees, because if they were that violent, there wouldn't be anybody left in this country. There wouldn't be one man, woman, or child still standing. Everybody would be in the ground. Until there were just the gun owners, then they'd kill each other, and then the last man would be so injured he'd just be sitting there and he'd blow his own head off. So that's just it's not sane. Obama's speech as well started a half an hour late like usual. I guess they had to use a helicopter to get him off the golf course or something, or he was too busy in the bathhouse or some bullshit like that. So they had to bring him in, and he had to pretend to actually care that Americans died. He makes this big big deal out of, civilians, like innocent people died. He kills innocent people every day. He kills 50 people a day with drones over in Pakistan and places like that. Most of them are civilians. WikiLeaks had to leak the actual Pentagon's report on it. 75% of the people that die aren't even the target. Again, what's the point? You piss people off overseas and then get surprised. You bring them in and you get surprised when they attack things. Or you have this ideology that's spreading around, which is a cultural, a politicized version of Islam. You know, there are religious zealots within Islam and they're violent. There are also political zealots within Islam who use Islamic dogma as part of their political rhetoric, and they're even more violent. That's like what ISIS is. That's like what Al-Qaeda was, until it sort of got curb-stomped by ISIS, and now they're fleeing into the deserts, fleeing into the Badlands, so to speak. And so you have this situation where even if someone isn't particularly religious, they've still been indoctrinated into this. And of course, yes, this was a U.S. citizen conducting the attack. That doesn't mean he wasn't an Islamic militant. It's not like there aren't Islamic militants living and breathing and holding jobs and sort of being undercover in the Western world. Of course there are. They've been radicalized, though, in many cases from abroad. Then we find that the local Orlando mosque, the cleric there openly called for gays to be killed not that long ago. I'll link that in the description. Then we find out there's a possible second terrorist, which may be could be a complete fluke, so totally unrelated to this attack. But regardless, we have someone who said he was going to the gay pride parade in LA, and I'll link this as well. And it turns out, he had a bunch of weapons, and he had tannerite, he had, pre-explosive materials for pipe bombs, and a fucking security badge, and probably gonna go blow more people's heads off at a gay pride parade. So, it's possible. Maybe they were working together. Maybe this is part of some weird sect that's dedicated to wiping out sodomites or something like that. I wouldn't put it past them. This is a religious zealot. It's a religious extremist. Why can't Obama call it what it is and not keep pretending that the existence of guns makes somebody violent. You give a soldier a gun, you have him stationed at his post. Unless somebody attacks the base, he's not going to use the fucking gun. The fact that he's holding the rifle doesn't make him violent until he pulls the trigger. This individual pulled the trigger a whole goddamn lot of times. Most gun owners never do. Many people who own guns never fire them at all. They don't even take it to a shooting range. They just collect them. And many of them, they just find it relaxing to pop off a few rounds at a tin can. Many more just go hunting. They're not even interested in shooting people. Others just want them for self-defense. You've got a slim minority of firearms actually used in any crime at all. And even in cases where the gun is used to injure or kill someone, oftentimes it's self-defense. Now, if we defend our nation with guns in the hands of the military, why can't people defend themselves here, domestically, their own property, their own community, their own loved ones, their own friends, their own inner circle, with guns? What makes them less trustworthy in the mind of some idiot statist like Obama than a soldier? Oh, that's right, he gets to command the soldier, so he doesn't have to worry because he can always command those people to go kill people he doesn't like overseas. Oh, now I understand the difference. See, he's not even anti-gun. You'd think Pelosi and Reid and all these people hate guns. They don't hate guns, they just hate guns in your hands. They don't hate guns in the hands of the terrorists that they're arming over in Syria because they keep giving them guns. They gave guns to cartels. They gave them actual automatic weapons, not these retard words for things like the AR-15, semi-automatic, assault rifle, horrible baby killer, 1,000 round per second, spawn of Satan himself. That's just not realistic. It's just a fucking hunting rifle. But Obama wouldn't know that. He's probably, he claims, oh yeah, sometimes I carry a gun. What is it, a BB gun? No, this idiot doesn't know what he's talking about. He's trying to scapegoat the usual suspects because the shooter was a Muslim. Therefore, the only thing he can say is it's a gun problem. If the shooter were not a Muslim, it would presumably be a problem with, I don't know, white rage, male rage, mental illness, or something like that. It was workplace violence. It was a revenge shooting. Oh, he was Islamic? Oh, shit, it's a gun problem. We need to take guns out of more people's hands. Yes, because the average gun owner clearly they sit there rocking back and forth in a rabid rage, foaming at the mouth and thinking who they can kill next. Okay, that makes perfect sense. You know what's really funny? The social justice warriors that are on board with Obama, number one, they don't realize he's like a warmonger, almost more of a warmonger than Bush. That's pretty funny. They look at gun owners in this country and say, we should be disarming these people because they're filled with violence and evil and they're always killing and shooting and all this horrible stuff. Then you have some group overseas or some domestic militant who actually is saying, hey, I want to kill the gays, I want to kill disobedient children, I want to kill adulteresses, I want to kill everybody who's not Muslim, I'm going to blow their heads off. And they ignore it. You've got someone openly proclaiming that they want violence in the streets. Somebody openly proclaiming that it's a good thing to kill all these classes of people. And they don't hear it. They don't pay any attention to it. Oh, that's not all Muslims. But at the same time, do they apply that same reasoning to gun owners that aren't Islamic? Of course not. No, they're all routinely violent. They're all evil. They're all out to get us. The NRA is Satan itself. I mean, come on, people. Stop living in la-la land for a moment. You've got people in this world that actually do want to kill a bunch of Westerners because they think it's a great thing. And in this case, they killed a bunch of gay people. Now, I would think that the social justice warriors at this point would say, I think there's something going on here. Maybe it actually is a problem in the dogma. See, for hundreds of years, you've criticized Christianity for being homophobic and against women's rights and against democracy. And so, yeah, it is. It's an insane, warped ideology when it's actually taken seriously. But none of you are smart enough to have read the Quran, read the Hadiths, and realize that that dogma is exactly the same. In fact, it's worse. It's more violent. The violence within, the bigotry within, with Muhammad calling black people raisin heads and screwing around with a 6-year-old, that's all encompassing within some of these Hadiths. Not so much the Quran itself, but in the Hadiths, read the Sahih al-Bukhari. It's right there. It's part of the goddamn dogma. And these people are too dumb to even realize it. And they'll probably, I'm sure a few of them will come here and say, oh, this is such a bigoted video. He's criticizing Islam. It's not all Muslims, lol. Well, yeah, I realize that there are Muslims that don't blow people's heads off. But you don't seem to let that get in the way of criticizing like the NRA or something when 99% of their members, the only time they fire their weapon is at a deer or a tin can. But you want to ban citizens of the United States from owning firearms, while the people you love, like Obama and Pelosi and Clinton, are sending guns by the thousands overseas to Islamic militants. If you think that these weapons don't end up in the hands of ISIS, which is joined at the hip at this point with the FSA anyway, these people throw gay people off buildings. And they take adulterers and adulteresses and they like gas them and they put them in pools of acid and burn them alive and they draw and quarter people. They do things that you've only seen in video games and movies. But your head is so far up your ass that you're not willing to understand and comprehend. The rest of the world, the places that Obama favors and sends weapons to and pays lip service to, routinely do this. The Saudis routinely behead people for being raped. They routinely behead people for being gay. And yet Obama says they're our greatest friends in the world. They give us all this oil. And, oh, they sure as hell weren't responsible for 9/11. Just don't read too much into the 9/11 report. And Bush did the same thing. He's just like Bush, only he doesn't pretend to support gun rights. You think W cared? W didn't care. He didn't do anything monumental either. All he let was the assault weapon ban expire without renewing it. Some great Second Amendment activist he was, just like Obama was such a great gay rights activist. That's why he was against gay marriage as a senator and really didn't do anything other than shut up and not defend DOMA in court. That's all he did. And he tried to take credit like he was some great leader of the gay crusade against the horrible religious bigots. He did nothing. And people, I think, are going to remember that. So, yeah, there's my thoughts about Obama's retarded speech, which is what it was. It was absolutely, completely fucking retarded. What a fucking loser. There are people that actually support this douchebag. I don't quite understand it myself, but, I made the mistake of voting for him in 2008. I didn't make that mistake in 2012. I voted for Ron Paul. So don't blame me for him actually being in office. That's about all. Peace out.